Hello, 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 and welcome back. Today we are going to read a fanfiction. It is called The Way I Behave. It's an Eraser Mike fanfiction, and it is on fanfiction.net. It's by Akatsuki member Wolfie, so that's what we're going to be reading today. Sundays will be our Baku Deku Still Into You days, so look out for those if you guys like that story. And yes, I hope you guys enjoy it. Give it a thumbs up if you like videos like this, and there will be more to come.
I say to myself when there's a time for a word, as I gracefully grow more debauched and deprived. Love may be strong, but a habit is stronger, and I knew when I loved by the way I behaved. That's cute. And that is by Peter S. Beagle, The Last Unicorn. The first chapter is called Butterscotch Latte. Working at a coffee shop had been a logical choice, if not an inspired one. To live, he needed the three basics: food, shelter, and coffee. Copious amounts of coffee, in fact. Probably enough to kill a weaker man. However, his tight budget only allowed for 2 or 3 necessities. Fortunately, the owner of the joint offered a hefty employee discount, meaning Shota Aizawa could effectively have his caffeine addiction without foregoing any other basic human needs. As a child, he never really imagined this would be his life at 30, but here he was, and he seldomly complained. He didn't hate working at the extroverted hermit. He could relate to most customers, especially those fellow workaholic zombies who arrived the first thing in the morning. So long as the coffee was hot and caffeinated, they never really gave him trouble. It was the perky customers who gave him trouble, especially the throngs of women who would ask far too many personal questions for his liking. He wasn't one to bend over backwards at every customer's request, unlike his coworkers, but he did like the work, courteously, casually, and professionally. The hours kept him busy, and on a good day he could manage 5 hours of sleep before his real job began. No, he didn't hate working there, but he didn't exactly like it either. He worked once at a cat cafe, but it had been 4 years ago, and he'd been fired for yelling at a customer who'd been improperly handling one of the younger felines. Had he overreacted? Yes. Had the customer deserved it? Also yes. Had he deserved to lose his job over it? According to his old boss, yes. That hadn't been a good day for him, although he supposed working with humans and solely humans was safer for his image, if not his sanity. "You really need to get more sleep," said his younger coworker. It was close to closing and they were the only ones still in the small shop. She was busting out the old vacuum already, while Aizawa was drying up the water glasses and storing them in the rack for tomorrow. "Your eyes are so bloodshot, people probably think you're a druggie. And seriously, you don't have bags under your eyes, you have suitcases," he answered in a distinctive monotone. He heard it a million times from her, other employees, and even some very rude customers. "You should really do something about your looks. The company policies ponytails, nice, but you need to shave. Either grow a beard or get rid of it. Stubble makes you look like a hobo. I think you're scaring away the customers," niffled, and suddenly sneezed. A great burst of fire lit up the carpet, but a few quick stomps put it out. "I think you scare them off without my help." "Right. Pick on the fire quirk." She rubbed her nose. "I think I'm getting cold." "What's your quirk anyway?" "Don't think I have ever asked, to be honest." "Don't have one," he lied as he placed another few cups away. "Really? I'm so jelly. Being quirkless is way better than having a busted quirk like mine. What were we talking about? Oh right, you need to smile more." In answer, Zawa stretched his mouth and forced himself to grin. His coworker looked mortified. "On second thought, forget about it. Just be a damn hobo. Ladies prefer a man they think they can help anyway, even if I know there's no helping you." He relaxed his mouth back into his usual line and finished drying the last glasses. "You able to flip the sign, hobo?" He grunted and went to comply, but was interrupted by a small bell above the door. A final customer. Aizawa was about to call out that they were closed, but one look at the man who entered made him stop. The man could only be described, unfortunately, as an eyesore. His dyed blonde hair was wrangled into a messy bun. His glasses were framed so thickly they could have inspired crime scenes, and his clothes were so colorful they made Aizawa's eyes literally sore. He had to look away, lest he ended the shift with an insufferable migraine. His coworker jumped to do her job. "Hello, sir," she said in her too happy customer voice. "Unfortunately, we're closing, but..." The man walked past her and leaned against the counter, like he was some sort of celebrity. "Hey," he said casually, his vibrant green eyes peered through the thick glasses to size up Aizawa. "A drink. Takeaway. Large. We're closed," he said bluntly, refusing to give in to the obnoxious smear. "Well, we haven't cleaned up the machine yet," said his coworker unhelpfully. "If it's just for something takeaway, it should be okay." "Thanks, darling," the blonde said as he waved his hand at her, although he kept his body facing away from Aizawa. He had a very small mustache, blonde like the rest of his unruly hair. Okay, maybe he was just a natural blonde, but it still didn't give him the right to wear rainbow vomit clothes. "Oi, if you could be any coffee in the world, what would you be?" 20 shots of espresso in a single cup, Shota answered honestly. That made the eyesore do a double take. He glanced Aizawa up and down, squinted at the name on his badge, and straightened a little. "Okay, just give me anything you recommend for someone you don't want to find dead in a dumpster." "You allergic to anything?" "Phone numbers of cute baristas," he said out of the blue with an audacious wink. "So definitely don't give me yours, if you insist," he muttered, and very clearly didn't write down his number as he went to make the eyesore a drink. He was used to women trying to flirt with him, Emphasis on the trying. In all of his years working in the coffee shop, this was the first time a man had made an effort. While his gender alone put him ahead of the competition, his blatant disregard for trading hours immediately crushed what minuscule interest MicZawa might have had. "You aren't gonna ask for my name?" questioned the blonde. "You know you have to put it on the cup." "What if someone else thinks my order is theirs?" The blonde gestured vaguely to the empty room, as if there were a crowd of other impolite customers who didn't know the meaning of the word clothes. Zawa glanced around the cafe, but was too tired to bother arguing. It was the end of his shift, and he hadn't slept for 18 hours. "Name." "The name's Sazashi, baby." He winked. Again. The dark-haired man picked up the marker and scribbled something on the takeaway cup before he continued brewing. For a time, the only noise was the machine. His coworker took it upon herself to flip the closing sign and wipe down the tables, postponing her vacuuming while the customer was still around. The man in question just leaned against the counter and watched him work. Not that Zawa had the energy to care. I say Zawa, but it says MicZawa. I just automatically give him a nickname. He finished making the drink and purposely moved to the pickup area, even though the blonde was still at the register. "Order for baby," Zawa called dryly. "Is there a baby here?" His coworker, upon hearing him, snorted out another burst of flame. That's a really cool quirk, by the way. Hazashi jumped at the unexpected quirk when he turned. Zawa noticed he was wearing hearing aids, although his glasses partially hid them. The blonde made a clicking sound with his mouth and traipsed to the pickup station. However, much to the insomniac's surprise, the man was clearly holding back a laugh. "You're funnier than you look." He took the coffee, a butterscotch latte. "Oh, that's so romantic," and sipped it, despite how hot it must have been. "Good guess, MicZawa," the blonde said, while glancing again to his name tag. He pulled out some cash and smacked it down. "Keep the change." MicZawa put the money in the register and slipped the remainder into the tip jar for the employees to divide. "Got a loyalty card?" "Nope, and as nice as this is, I won't be needing one." "Good, because we're closed," he said coldly. "If you come back, do so during business hours." Hazashi sipped the coffee again and smiled. "If I come back, I'll make sure of it, baby." They watched as he left without any further provocation required, and the coworker physically slumped once he was out of sight. "Oh man, we got visited by him." "Him?" "Yeah, it's a rite of passage for baristas," she claimed as she plugged the vacuum in at long last. "He a critic?" "No, more like an urban legend. Don't you have barista friends?" "Are you asking if I specifically have barista friends or if I have friends in general? The answer to both is no." She groaned. "He comes in, gets a drink the barista recommends, and then leaves. I've heard he's never visited the same place twice." That sounded horrific and illogical. "Good riddance," he muttered as he started cleaning the coffee machine. MicZawa hadn't planned to stay at the capsule hotel for longer than a month, but that had been 10 years ago, and his decision had changed. Staying there was cheaper than owning an apartment, and it had a laundromat, communal bathroom, and a personal locker, Wi-Fi, charging points, hot water, and the vending machine that was exclusively dispensed instant noodles. His room was literally a human crawl space with a pillow and a personal yellow sleeping bag, but when you only slept for 5 hours every day, having anything more was unnecessary. All he did all day, every day, was work. His phone buzzed, the silent alarm waking him to instantly tell him it was now midnight. It was time for his real job to begin. MicZawa climbed out from his pod, sealed it, and then headed to the elevator. He was now dressed in complete black with a scarf tied around his neck. Goggles covered his face to hide his identity, while his hair was now free from the company policy ponytail. His schedule was strict. He started work at the Extroverted Hermit at 6 a.m., finished at 6 p.m. He'd have dinner and relax for an hour, sleep until midnight, patrol the streets for villains until 5 a.m., get back, shower, and then get to the cafe before opening. By day, he was a tired barista. By night, he was an equally tired hero. Specifically, he was the underground hero known as Eraserhead, and it was his duty to stop all criminals in the area, whether they were quirk users or just plain bags. He followed his typical route through the back alleys and rooftops, but the night was proving to be rather uneventful. When he'd been younger, he might have described it as annoyingly uneventful, although nowadays he was more thankful for the quieter nights. If things were uneventful, it meant no one was in danger. Nevertheless, as soon as Zawa settled on the idea that it would be uneventful, the universe decided to change his mind. He heard a man scream for help. Eraser rushed to investigate, quickly finding himself in a 2-story warehouse. It was long since abandoned, the furniture cleared, and left to stand the test of time. Eraser moved stealthily through the dark corridors, his eyes hidden by his goggles and ears tuned for the sound of danger. Everything was dark inside, but he was certain the scream had come from here. The door he approached gave way to a large room, but what he hadn't expected was for the floor to suddenly not be there. Eraser was falling. If he did nothing, he'd surely die upon the bottom of the dark pit. The scarf around his neck sprung and dug into the cement sides. Someone must have carved a deep hole through the very foundation of the depleted building. His descent slowed and he managed to land neatly, if not gracefully, on the ground below. The darkness instantly vanished as a towering spotlight lit up overhead. temporarily blinding him with a sudden shift. The hole was deep, and the ground was packed with fragments of pulverized concrete. He wouldn't be able to climb out of the sides, but there was a metal beam in the roof where someone had hung the spotlight. It was tall, but he could reach it with his capture weapon if he launched himself up high enough. The main unsettling idea, of course, was that he wasn't alone down there. Picking himself off the ground was a large, bulky man with reptilian skin, demonic horns, and more muscles than your average appearance quirk. Had he carved this hole? Small eyes landed on him, and Eraser instantly knew that there was no way he was gonna get out without a fight. "Welcome, dear listeners," called the exuberant voice from above. Both Eraser and Reptile Man looked up to see the dark shape leering over the sides of the cavern. "Welcome to the show." Oh wow. Oh, this sounds interesting. This was his big debut, the moment Hazashi Yamada had been waiting for years and years. It was the introduction of the soon-to-be feared voice villain, known succinctly as Present Mike. The hole had taken far too long to carve out, even with his vocal cords, but it would be worth it for this moment. Welcome to the show. In the left corner, we have the feared villain, Crocodile Dunny. This is Crab Goyle, and I'm Mouthful. Draco Mouthful. He paused to allow for imaginary cheers before he turned the eye to the other half of the captive audience. The man below had black, unruly hair. A scarf and golden goggles covered half of his face. Mike was taken by surprise. He'd never heard of a hero who matched the description, but only a hero would have jumped into action at his screams. And in the right corner, our fabulous hero, black hair. He was hoping for some sort of reaction from the hero, an offended shout clarifying what his actual title was, but there was nothing like that. In fact, black hair didn't say anything at all.
Crocodile Dunny snapped his maws in Present Mike's direction. "Why are we here?" "Well, my scaly listener, you're going to be fighting to the death." Yes, this was going to be fun. The two would fight. Then, just as the winner thought they'd live to see another day, Mike would break them into pieces. The bodies would be found a few days later with his calling card at the scene. He'd see his name across the news, and the reign of terror would begin. His only annoyance was the first hero target wasn't someone well known, so press coverage would be undoubtedly lower than expected. But as he watched black hair lunged at the villain, Mike's heart skipped a beat with excitement. He thought he'd need to convince a hero to kill a villain more thoroughly, but this guy didn't need any convincing. However, his stomach dropped as he continued to watch. The hero landed on the villain's shoulders and used the knee-jerk reaction of the villain grabbing him to leap even higher into the air. His scarf was shot upward, and Mike watched in horror as he flew past him and wrapped around the beam high above, pulling the hero free from the pit. The blonde filled his lungs and screamed with his quirk, but his voice refused to work. What was this? Why wasn't his quirk? The hero was watching him through the goggles. His hair was flying around as he shot upward. Was this his quirk? He stopped his voice quirk somehow and he imagined it had something to do with the covered eyes. Not only that, but the hero was headed straight for him. His mind races as he tried to figure out how to escape, knowing he'd never be able to escape if. Hazashi spun on his heels and bolted for the door. It was a gamble, but if he had to break eye contact then. He reached the door before the hero reached him. His lungs swelled with oxygen. He spun on his heels, the door slammed shut. As soon as the hero was out of sight, Present Mike screamed, "Yeah!" The speaker around his neck thrummed with his voice. The door flew away from him along with the crumbling walls around it and even the metal frame. There was no way the hero could have predicted this sudden barrage, but Mike wasn't one to take any chances as he turned pale and fled before the commotion attracted more heroes. The entire building shook, to his surprise, began to collapse around him. The blonde leaped through a broken window and escaped being crushed by mere seconds. He tumbled to the ground, his breath coming out in ragged exhales as he promptly assessed the situation. Well, although things hadn't gone exactly as they planned, there was still no way the hero and villain would have survived that catastrophe. Hazashi picked himself up off the sidewalk, but had no time to even dust himself as he fled, his mouth already salivating as he dreamt of the news reports that would come out tomorrow about his victory. After everything, he hadn't realized he'd forgotten to leave his calling card at the scene. So that's the end of that chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It sounds very interesting. I'm not gonna lie, I did not expect it to go like this in the first chapter. I really like it. I'm not even a huge MicZawa shipper. Yeah, same.
I'm very intrigued.
Actually, I don't ship him at all because I'm in love with MicZawa.
Yeah, I ship MicZawa. I'm very intrigued to see where the story goes. So if you guys like this story, if you want me to keep on reading it, then give it a thumbs up. I'll probably keep reading anyway because, to be honest, I'm gonna read it regardless. So I hope you enjoyed your bedtime story tonight. Remember to stay safe, drink water, and do your homework, and take care of yourself. I love you so much, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Also, comment down below what else you guys would like to see on this channel. I've heard that you guys wanted some mukbangs. I've also heard that you wanted some vlog style videos, so let me know what you want and I will deliver. I love you endlessly and you make me so unbelievably happy. Sleep well. Bye.